Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Happy 9 to 5. Today, we're talking about unemployment insurance and discussing a lot of the questions that you have brought forward with two industry experts. So we have with us Saif, VP of Insurance at Bayzat. How are you, Saif?
All good, all fine. How's everything with you?
All good.
My name is Saif. I've been in this market for the last 13 years, handling property casualty underwriting in multiple of insurance companies, and now with Bayzat.
Wonderful. You come with a lot of experience, and I've worked with you in the past. Honestly, I can trust you with my life when it comes to insurance. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Pleasure's mine.
And on the other side, we have Kelly, Head of People at Tabby. Welcome.
Hi, nice to be here.
Nice to have you. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Excited.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Kelly.
So I've been in the region for 11 years. Prior to that was obviously in the UK. I've been in tech in a people perspective for about the last 5 years. And I'm excited to learn more today from Saif and from yourself, and just dive into the conversation.
Wonderful. How are you finding the changes that are happening in the market? A lot has been going on when it comes to people.
Yeah, you're right. I think over the last kind of 18 months to 12 months, there's been a lot of kind of people initiatives, and they've definitely been keeping us on our toes from a people perspective. I think coming out of the pandemic, I think HR people thought, oh, okay, now we can breathe. And then they threw lots of different changes from a people perspective around visas, around contracts, around gratuity. But I think it's a really good sign of kind of the progressive thought processes within the region. And I think, there's lots more to be looked at and to be had. But I think each of these initiatives is, demonstrating that people matter in this region, and that how we can move to becoming more and more employee friendly is definitely the way that the region's going, which I think is, super exciting and impressive that these initiatives are, coming thick and fast.
And we love that change, really. The latest thing that has been, the talk of the field, we can say, is unemployment insurance, and there's so much ambiguity about it, Saif. So what is it really?
It's a way of employee protection when it comes to, it's in other country you can call it maybe social security or something. Like when you lose your job, you get compensated with a certain amount or certain margin of your previous income. So it's been implemented in the UAE since the beginning of the year. It works in a way that if somebody loses his job due to termination, not due to any fraud or disciplinary action or anything like that, they will be compensated a certain amount of their lost income.
Okay.
The UAE, as we mentioned earlier, it works in a way just to make like the employees more happy and to reduce the turnover of people, or make, let's say, the environment more employee friendly. So, and you can see we are at the end, there's a big number of expatriates in the country. So this is a way or another to look at them being protected in case they lost a job out of no reason, or let's say suddenly.
The first question that comes to my mind is, who are eligible for such a scheme?
Everybody eligible for such scheme, but there is like certain criteria. So everybody is covered, like, let's say, eligible, except, let's say, investors, anyone who's under free zone visas, juvenile, people less than 18 and working, because I think this is part of the internship, they are not covered. And I think everybody who completed 12 months under this program, like they pay the premium for 12 months, they are eligible.
Okay, so people working in free zones, that really ticks my mind. So why is there such an exclusion?
Okay, every free zone have their own, let's say, human resources rules, and MOHRI, which is the Ministry of Human Resources and Democratization, have, let's say, they can control or regulate the mainland companies, but the free zone have their own rules and regulations, and the authority there, I think they will follow the MOHRI at a certain level, but as of now, I think it's only the mainland companies that can do the being parts or eligible for this program.
Okay. Personally, I feel like there might have been a little bit more pushback into including these free zones, to just because you're protecting the employee, and this is the responsibility of the employee themselves to cover themselves. So I think it could have been more inclusive into covering these people. I mean, it's not mandatory from a company's perspective, but what do you think, what kind of imbalance would that bring in the free zone area, or how do employees feel overall?
Yeah, I think with most big changes like this, and it is a big change, like it's not just something that you can overnight bring into this kind of environment. And I think in a way, this is a good way of kind of phasing it, seeing how practically it works, seeing what some of the confusion or the pushbacks or the implications of it would be. So I'm not against some of the kind of eligibility exclusions. I do think longer term that everybody will move towards this kind of setup, and I think it's the right thing. And I think probably even more evolution around how the premium or the money is deducted and things like that will also come into effect. So I don't think at the moment there is this sense of exclusion or unfairness because I think there's just so many unknowns at this stage. I think once this has been embedded and there's been, you know, a year's worth of premiums and we see how this actually works in practice, I think more and more companies will become more curious, because there's no doubt that it's a really valuable and viable, in terms of how much it costs, benefit to put in place. I think at the moment, and I don't disagree with this, some employers are like, well, let's just sit back and watch and see what happens. What's the real value that people put on this? And we'll know that when we're trying to attract talent from, zone where they do have this. And if that's a pushback, well, I'm not going to come and work for you because right now I have this benefit in place. So there will become that kind of competitive landscape around benefits. And I think employers will naturally follow suit because it is an attractive benefit to have in place. But I think right now, as with most big change programs, particularly in this kind of sphere, people want to wait and see what happens.
Proof of concept.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everyone does it. It's not just in employee benefits, right? It's a life lesson. So right now I'm not aware of any kind of, disruption around it in terms of it's not fair, but it feels strange that it's not all inclusive because it's an inclusive employment market, right? So right now you don't really feel the barriers between free zone and the other ones, DIFC, etc. So I think this will be an interesting one to look at, whether it does polarize or make people choose differently based on whether that benefit is there or not.
100% agree. And we are as well just sitting back, looking at the market and understanding how people are reacting towards it. It has been only a few months, but the major comeback from the market is that they're happy that such a change is happening. It's bringing a lot of security into the market, especially at such a time. But how would you see such a scheme affecting the job market?
Yeah, again, I think it's hard to tell right now. I can only kind of assume or take some guesses. I think eventually, if it's seen to be value add, and I think sadly in times of turbulence where terminations are more prevalent or big, I think right now this region is, the word benefiting is probably not the right word, but not seeing the big layoffs that the rest of the world have been. But who knows? Yeah, exactly. Hopefully not, but who knows what will be the case this time next year, for example. So I think in terms of how it will impact the job market is yet to be seen. But I do think and encourage employers to be competitive on this, because I think that this is a basic benefit. And I think it's something that employers should want to have in place. And I think it's something that employers should want to instill confidence in their employees that, terminations do happen and sometimes they're way out of control of even the employer, right? And I think being seen as a employee friendly or people first culture around, we know what it is to be an expat in this region, and we know that your ability to live here is dependent on your visa situation, and that's 9 times out of 10 linked to your employment. Then what can we do to kind of safeguard you and give you that security that if a termination does happen, that we've got your best interest at heart over and above what we can do as an employer anyway, right? So to come back to your question, I think it's too early to tell whether it's going to create this massive disruption. But I do think that the most progressive employers will kind of be proactive on this and get this in place and make it not a differentiator for times when you'll be behind the curve otherwise.
But do you think termination would be an easier decision for companies to take because of this?
I don't see that link, and I haven't. And I think it's interesting for those that do. I think, again, the best employers out there don't don't use the ease of termination that there is in this region as a reason to do it, or they definitely shouldn't. And I don't think that this in place is enough to give you the need to have a bad reputation in the market, right? Dubai is a small place, and your employer brand is one of the most important factors when you're trying to attract and retain. And if we look at the workplace and the workforce now, they want to work for employers where that culture of people-friendly policies and benefits and approaches are there. And the workforce now, especially the younger generations, they look for that. If they have two offers on the table that are the same from a financial perspective, they want to go where the environment and the culture kind of, resonates with them. And being people-friendly is the best way to do that, because, your intentions as an employer are really, really important nowadays.
100%. Absolutely agree. But when you spoke about the visa, that brought me back to technicalities a little bit. So in terms of claiming back the benefit, how does that work?
First thing, the number one rule, you should complete 12 months in this program. So it should be already paid 12 month premium, so you can claim. The second thing, when you want to claim, this claim should be submitted within 30 days of the termination. So if you got terminated, you have 30 days to notify the insurance company. There's the hotline for there that you can tell them that I lost my job, and that's proof of termination. They'll start paying you, I think, within the next 2 weeks. Now, the claim will be 60% of your income from your last income, basic salary we are talking about, not talking about the gross salary. So 60% of the basic salary. Termination, it's not resignation or not being fired for any reason that, unethical, or let's say fraud or whatever. So that also should be part of it. And the last thing, you can claim only once. And that means you lost your job in the second year, and you can only claim once when that happened. So you cannot claim more than one time in a year after getting terminated.
So basically, if I had already registered, so I'm not covered this year if I get terminated.
Yes.
However, next year when I start paying premium again, and I am terminated, I can only claim it once.
So you can claim it once. You will be paid for 3 months. 60% of your salary.
What if it takes me longer to get a job?
To be honest, looking at the situation of UAE and how they handle the visa, and once you get terminated, I think you have 90 days to stay in the country. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have 90 days to stay in the country. So this is covered by this program. So it's gonna cover you for the next 90 days income. Okay. But what comes after that, I think you should be either leaving the country or finding a job already. So once you find a job, the benefit will stop. The insurance company should be notified that you found a job, and the benefit will stop.
And if I am terminated again after I find another job within that year?
You will not be eligible to claim again.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I think that's a fair ask to stop misuse if it may arise.
Yeah, because definitely there will be one or another people trying to benefit of this, let's say, this thing, especially if you're talking about companies have multiple trade licenses. So it can be people getting hired again, another visa. So it might be happening. So this is to prevent fraud, misuse of or abusing the program. Because at the end, this program is to benefit people. It's not to be misused by people.
So we've spoken about the protection against fraud and misuse, but some would argue that unemployment insurance can decrease motivation in employees, quiet quitters. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that's a loose assumption. Of course, if you feel more relaxed that if you get terminated, you've got some financial cushion there, I think, you could argue that, but I think it's a loose kind of connection. I think there are a few mechanisms within it that don't make it so black and white. For the eligibility piece, for example, I think also the amount of money that you get. And I think also what we spoke about earlier about, your ability to remain in the country being so connected with your visa and employment status, that I think they're much bigger concerns rather than, the financial piece. Often in termination cases, it's normally the visa piece that's the biggest concern of the individual rather than the financial piece. There are obviously exceptions, but I don't think that quiet quitting can be blamed for something like this. I think it's a great assumption, but there are much bigger things around quiet quitting that employers should be already looking at and addressing, rather than, the fact that they get 3 months 60% of their salary, and again, not across the board. Yeah, termination is a much bigger concern than just the financial piece, and I think employers should go some way to, look at the financial piece, but they should also look at the quiet quitting piece within their own organization and look at the reasons why, and it's way more than the threat of being terminated. So I don't think it's a strong correlation.
Yeah, I don't think it's a strong motive for someone to be job hopping just because they know they have the security. Another factor to look at, it's not that easy for you to move from a job to the other. It's not that simple. It quite takes time. So the government did open up for companies to be able to register for this scheme, right, on behalf of their employees. So what do you think about this behavior? Should companies try and go into that direction? Is this gonna, affect negotiations when it comes to job offers, compensation? Would it be something that you would include in your standard benefits package? What do you think of that?
Yeah, I definitely think it's something that employers should already be thinking about, even if the obligation isn't there now. And I think touching on what we spoke about earlier around, that competitive landscape and how employees potentially could be looking at it in the future when they have two offers on the table. I do think employers can start thinking again more creatively around how they can, enhance this. If, the obligation is on the individual to pay the premium, what can an employer do to, top up the severance piece? If we are just looking at 60% paid, and it is based on basic, the natural inclination would be for an individual to think, oh, I need a higher basic to protect myself. Whereas that has more implications for an employer around gratuity and just around pay philosophy and structure anyway. So could they use different approaches to make it more advantageous without playing around with the basic by topping up that 60% or having their own severance terms that they apply on top of this and things like that? So again, I think it's early to see, but I do think employers should be already thinking about how to be competitive with it. It's a great employee friendly benefit like we've already spoken about, and I think just being left behind from an employer brand and EVP perspective doesn't warrant the actual cost that it can have for an employer. I would argue that the best employers out there already have some informal severance package anyway in place, and this is just a bonus almost for them to be able to make their severance packages that are already in place better. So yeah, I think if we don't see it, then employees will start probably verbalizing around it. It will be another piece of kind of market data that they will use like they already do around, oh, so-and-so does this and so-and-so does that and my friend has this. So I think if employers can be proactive, that's the best way to tackle it.
We're becoming a more employee protecting market, and the government is really trying to push a lot of benefits into the way of the employer, even if they're not mandatory, but it really opens up a lot of room for creativity in enhancing your packages. So I absolutely agree on this being a leeway for companies to capital on and making themselves stand out when it comes to pulling talent. Because from what I'm seeing in the market, if it comes to a financial benefit, for my role, it would be the same salary in 5 different companies. So how are you distinguishing yourself to attract me as valuable talent, right? Yeah. And I think that's where the creativity has to come in for companies.
I think it's important to note that this on its own is not going to be that differentiator probably. Like I think this is part of a wider kind of approach to compensation 100%. And culture and things like that. But it's a great one to have in place because it is a hygiene factor almost, which a lot of companies sometimes they jump over that part and forget about the hygiene factors. So yeah, I don't think it's the only answer, but it's definitely something that employers can take advantage of in the right way to make themselves more attractive to talent.
And something that will get companies to get started with these things, that employees within themselves, they talk. Oh, my company has this wonderful package and they paid this for me and I don't have to do it, or they reimbursed me. So this talk between employees or individuals really push companies into going to a specific partner or changing their benefits to fit the market trend really.
Yep.
So yeah, we're going well. So we spoke about all of the benefits and the great things that are coming with this scheme. you know, it's the nature of the world. There are
Yeah.
pros and cons to everything. So what do you think are the drawbacks of this scheme and how can we address them?
The drawbacks, I think since this is a national, program done by the Ministry of Human Resources, I think, when you do such planning, you don't come with, let's say, with an escape plan. So what will happen exactly if this program worked for the first year, as an example, collecting the premiums, not paying any claims, so you funded enough at least for the second year when claims start happening. So in next year they will do another assessment. So here where you start paying claims, you'll see if it's a loss-making program or profit-making program. We are not talking about profit here will be shared, but the profit here will be in the same pool. God forbid anything else happened. Like let's say, as an example, the layoffs happening, let's say, in the other part of the world. So such things have a huge magnitude when it comes to the workforce. So I think in case where another, like this program not say have enough fund to pay, there will be something called repricing, or they look at how this program can be repriced on an actuarial, let's say, point of view. So I think there will be no drawbacks, but I think they will be more into how to make it work, how to make it more functional. I think it's going to be, in case if it didn't work, it's going to be repriced again. But since everybody is enrolling on it, especially the mainland companies, I think they will be like, let's say, they're going to go with trial and fail, I think. So they're going to keep doing it till it becomes perfect. That's in my opinion. So if you're asking me if there will be a repricing or there increase in premium from the 5 and 10 dirham things, there's a big possibility it's going to happen. But I don't think in the first 2 years. Because in the first year there is no claim, so second year the claims might happen. Usually in the third year we will have a whole point of view. Now we have 24, 24 month already paid premiums, and you can see 12 months of paid claims, and you can see that, like let's say, if it's gonna work or not. And in the third year, definitely you'll be like, let's say, you'll be sure 100% that if it's working or not.
Okay.
But in my opinion, this is gonna go for long. It's not gonna be like a 5-year project or 10-year project. This is gonna go for long. But I don't think the terms conditions will remain the same. I think they either maybe increase the 60, drop the 60% of the income, like let's say the compensation, or they might increase the premium a little bit, or I don't think there will be a decrease in the premium, but increase the premium and increase the benefit as well. So way or another, that's things how it goes in the UAE. Everything evolves. So it's gonna evolve at a certain level, I think, with, like, let's say, keeping in consideration that this is for the employee benefits at the end, to make it more employee friendly.
Okay, so this is from a scheme perspective or from a pool perspective.
Yes.
But like any other insurance product, obviously, claim loss ratio comes into consideration. So do we see it being possible that you would be looked at individually when it comes to your claims? Like, let's say you have been on the scheme for 5 years and this person has been being terminated every single year and has been claiming every single year. Will that come into would there be a time where this comes into consideration and this person's premium would have to be increased on his own?
I think, yeah, as we mentioned earlier, I think you can claim once.
Okay, yeah.
So
if someone is, on the long term,
because at the end it's connected to your Emirates ID, so it's gonna be triggered and red flag. So if there's a potential of misuse or let's say fraud, yes, it will be triggered on spot. So and the loss ratio thing, I think way or another it's gonna be like even employers will be like, let's say, in my opinion, it will be marked like if they have high turnover. or there is like, let's say, a certain how to say that culture of letting people go in bulk. But it happened earlier, and I think way or another, like, let's say, it's under control now. But it will also, especially when you say like it's gonna mark the employees that they do this, it's gonna mark the employers themselves as well. So I don't know how they will look into it, but I think that's you will have a real, like, let's say, tangible data in your hand, like this employee or this employer, let go people in bulk or let go people with a certain, let's say, culture. So in my opinion, now you have it in numbers, especially it's connected to the ministry.
This reminds me of when medical insurance first became mandatory.
Exactly, yeah.
And how slowly the market changed, and how the behavior of people claiming changed, and how the prices had changed.
Yeah. Goes, by the way, sorry to interrupt, but this goes also before it become mandatory. Let's say, I remember when they implemented the e-claim portal, which is, where all the, let's say, providers, pharmacies, insurance companies are connected.
Yes.
That fixed a lot of things, which, previously used to bring, like, let's say, a reimbursement, which is 100% fraud, like you copy it, like, let's say, on a photocopy, and that was sold. If you look at pharmaceutical, like, you used to claim the same medicine from multiple pharmacies. Now it's one system connecting all. So the same thing, I think, gonna happen here. One system connect all, the employee, the employer, and the ministry. And that's now definitely monitored.
But this shows me positivity on the long run, when it's monitoring the behavior, and then monetary impacts become the subsequent event for bad culture, high turnover. What's your take on that, Kelly? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that any kind of steps that you can make to hold employers more accountable for how they employ and terminate people, then it's going in the right direction. There are always instances where terminations have to happen and should happen and need to happen. So this is about kind of, protecting for those, I guess, more laid back companies who sometimes don't take the right steps beforehand. And then also those companies that have no choice, like from a financial burn rate, to save 10 people, 3 people have to go. And I think there are always those difficult decisions to make. So I think it's a very positive step forward. I think there's some evolution to happen, like Saif said, and it will happen. But data is what's going to drive that. So, yeah.
So we've covered a lot, and I think we went into a lot of detail from a technical perspective and from a field perspective as a company. So what would be your advice for employees watching us and listening to us right now, Saif?
I think, they should have the accountability, the responsibility to enroll themselves on this program. At the end, it's for their own benefit. And, that also help the employers themselves, just to make sure that at least their employees have part of this responsibility. Because employers already handling a lot on their own. Like, let's say, when it comes to medical insurance, when it comes to even paying the visas or the employee protection plan on visas, 70 dirhams. So you are talking about there's a lot of things on the employer side. At least this time it should be on the employee side. And this shows like the give back or the commitment to the employer themselves, like they should be committed to this, and at the end it's for their own benefit.
Yes.
And nobody is, like, let's say, everybody is confident of what they do, but nobody is 100% certain that what comes and how the companies can perform.
It would honestly bring peace of mind.
Yeah, definitely. Anyone will have,
anything can happen.
Let's say,
anytime.
if you have a plan B, this is a plan C. So everybody always plan for plan A, keeping the job, plan B, maybe to have something else, but this is a plan C that always help. At the end, everybody wants this safety net.
Yes.
And this is not even the safety net. This is 60% of the safety net, but it's okay, at least. Better than nothing.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, everybody should be enrolled. Everybody should be feeling the responsibility. They should be enrolled. And even when we say, like, let's say, if they are not, they didn't enroll themselves, there are penalties. But again, penalties should not be the drive to enroll yourself.
Yes.
Because even the penalties, at the end, it's for your own benefit. This is a benefit that you can earn at such, let's say, low premium. So in my opinion, everybody should be enrolling themselves for it.
I 100% agree. So we've heard for employees. What about you, Kelly? What could be your advice for business owners, HR people, or employers in general?
Yeah, I think being proactive is key here. And I think the education piece and just keeping on top of what's happening with it, even if you're not, mandated to do it now, start thinking now. Learn from other people that are going through this, how they've done it. And I think also keeping your employees educated on what the requirements are, even if it's not relevant for them now, like how could it look in 12 months time, and what's your position as an employer on it, even if it's no action now but we'll review it in 12 months. Like, I think being vocal about it and letting your employees know that it's of interest and importance is really, really important. I think where there's a vacuum, employees tend to put their own narrative in there. So as proactive and on the front foot as you can be around what it means to you as an employer, that will go a long way to creating some confidence and answering questions on a very simplistic level as well. So yeah, I think people should start thinking about it and working out what their stance is going to be if and when it does become mandatory, or even if it doesn't, like what will you do differently?
Differentiate yourself. That's honestly key with pooling talent and retaining them properly. Thank you guys so much for your
Thank you for having
great
Thank you.
insights and advice. It was lovely having you. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we hope that this was a very informative session for you. Take care.